Jason, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
I'm great, Jeremy. Thanks for having me on.
You've got this big fight coming up. I mean, it's a world title fight. When and how were you approached for this fight?
When and how was I approached for this fight?
Yes.
Um, well, my team just contacted me and says that there's a possibility of the Demetrius Andrade fight. They asked me, am I interested, even though they knew the answer. My team contacted me and we got the ball rolling and we were ready to rock and roll.
Obviously, a world title fight. I mean, that's what every fighter dreams of. How much does this mean to you to have this opportunity?
This is something that as a kid you dream of. Like these is probably the reasons why you start boxing and get an interest in boxing as a kid, because you've watched your idols, you've watched the people that you look up to won a world championship. And whenever you sign that professional contract, the end goal is to become a world champion and to fight for that world title. But all that kind of through your career changes. And at this stage now of my career, I believe that this isn't a dream no more. This isn't something that you long for or that you want down the line. This is something that I deserve right now. This is something that's happening right now. I've worked my ass off to get myself into this position. Boxing isn't the easiest of sports to do inside and outside the ring. So, I've earned my right to be here now, and I'm looking forward to getting in there and taking care of business.
As far as your last fight, you had a good fight against Shane Mosley Jr. Looking back at that fight, what were some of the takeaways? What things did you think about when you watched that fight over again?
I think my composure in that fight, just to mix it up a little bit as well. I didn't just stay one style throughout the whole fight. I mixed it up. At the start, was a little bit slow of starting. Just getting into the feel for it. I had been out of the ring for a long time, so it took me 2 or 3 rounds to kind of get into the swing of things. And then, I got up my toes, started boxing, started moving, and near the end, then I mixed it back up again and made sure that the judges knew that I was the enforcer. I was the lad that wanted it more than the other guy.
So you go from that fight, you get this fight, obviously. And as far as your preparation for Andrade, he's had, numerous fights, but looking at his performances in his last 3, whether it's against Williams, Keeler, Selecki, are there any weaknesses that you've kind of been seeing that he consistently makes that maybe you can capitalize on?
Yeah, look, every boxer gets in the ring, makes mistakes, and there's weaknesses there unless you land your first punch is the knockout punch and the fight's over. But look, Andrade is a great champion. He's a two-weight world champion. I think he's definitely the best middleweight out there at the minute. And of course, he has some flaws in his game and some things that I'm going to try to exploit come fight night. But most importantly, I'm making sure that I'm coming to the ring 110% prepared, making sure that my game is as spot on as I can have it, and let him worry about me more so than me worrying about him.
He's a very awkward fighter. I mean, that's what everyone kind of says when they look at him. He's awkward. He does some things that really confuse his opponents. That southpaw stance. Talk about your history against southpaws and, what's your perspective when fighting a southpaw?
I've never had any problems fighting a southpaw. As an amateur, I've had a lot of amateur fights, a lot of amateur experiences, traveled all over the world, and came up in numerous of amateur boxing tournaments. You would have 5 or 6 fights in 1 week, and you'd be coming up against different styles every day. So to me, it doesn't faze me too much. It's actually a lot easier in the professional game because I've had a full training camp. And look, this is what it's all about. You can, as the famous Mike Tyson, everybody's a plan until they get hit in the face. So it's just a matter of working on the things that you're good at, trying to exploit the things that he's not so good at, and yeah, just performing on the night.
I know that a lot of fighters have been hesitant to fight Andre because of his style. You know, he has a way of making good fighters look bad. I mean, what does that say about you that you accepted this fight? I mean, it really seems that you're willing to take anybody on if you're willing to take Andre on.
Yeah, without a doubt, you know, I'm not one of these guys that's in this sport just to take part and just to you know, be in the bright lights every now and then, and you know, coast through my career. You know, I'm at a stage now in my career where I'm at the important stage of my career. I'm peaking now in my professional career, and look, Demetrius, as I say, is a great champion. I want to become the best, and to become the best, you've got to beat the best. And I believe Demetrius is the best in the middleweight division right now. So for me to get in there, to beat him, and to become world champion would put me right up there as number one in the middleweight division.
In the 1920s and like the era of like Benny Leonard and some of those old school champions, those guys used to fight like once every 4 weeks, and if they lost, it was no big deal. They would go back and they would fight the next week and try to avenge it. You have one loss on your record against Terranio Johnson. Kind of looking back at that one loss, I mean, it shouldn't characterize your career because you have one loss on your record. How do you look back at that one defeat?
I don't look back no more, whether it's in boxing or whether it's in life. You know, things might happen in your career, might happen in your life. You deal with it at the time, you know, and look at it where you've went wrong. What can you do to make it better? You leave that there and you move on as a better person. And that's what I've done against my loss of my career. You know, I've looked at things that weren't maybe working in my favor or weren't going right for me. I've changed a lot of things in my career and in my life. And I just left that in the past and moved forward now. And look where I am now. I'm fighting for a world title.
When you talk about changes, what were maybe the 2 or 3 changes or things that you focused on the most that you felt have gotten to where you are today?
I changed location of where I'm training. I was training over in Sheffield in England at the time. I'm now back closer to home in Ireland, and also training with Andy Lee, which has been a massive help in my career and in my boxing. So, you know, it's those are 2 very big changes to make, and I think they've paid off big time.
Obviously, other than the Irish connection, Andy Lee being such a long technical fighter back in his days, how has his viewpoint of boxing meshed with your way of fighting?
Look, me and Andy came up through the same kind of a program on the Irish national team. We both ended up turning professional over in the States. We both ended up coming closer back to home. We've had a very similar journey in some ways, but Andy's boxing IQ is second to none, I believe, and the way that he reads a fight, the way that he gives instructions, very simple, very clear. He's definitely been a massive help to me, and those are definitely his strong points.
Jason, it's an exciting time, huge fight. Congratulations on getting it, and you know, hopefully I'll be congratulating you afterwards on an excellent performance coming up 11th, November 19th. Thank you so much, Jason.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it, Jeremy.